so I'm sure we'll be
This
fine.
is true. Hi, Dr. Rob.
Tammy, good to see you. Good to hear from you. All that good stuff.
We're going to start off tonight. We have a question, so I'm putting it in the answered so you can read it.
Okay, let me
Um,
just take out my little pad so I can take notes so I don't forget things. Go
yes.
ahead.
Okay, so 2.5 years after D-Day, husband says and looks like he has been in good recovery. He recently started EMDR. 1 week later, he dumped on me that in the session he realized he was attracted to a therapist that I took him to. She speaks in his ear as a massage therapist finds trauma stored in his body. This was before I knew he was an addict. He said he was attracted to her during the 5 sessions. He wanted to book 5 more sessions, but didn't. Since first disclosure, he has been adamant that nothing inappropriate happened since. What makes him think I believe that he was only attracted to her, and that's as far as it went, zero objectification. I feel like a fool for even driving him there. His CSAT refuses to acknowledge that this as a D-Day number 2. He left the house in a 30-day separation, came back after 2 nights, said leaving home wasn't good for his sobriety.
So
This is
Tammy,
complicated.
can we drop the last two sentences about leaving home just for the moment and look at the rest of
Mm-hmm.
it before we.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you were to formulate a question, Tammy, from this, I have some ideas. What would be the question that you think is being asked? Because I don't really hear in the
Well,
beginning a question.
yeah, like to me, this is the partner saying, I feel like this is another D-Day and being um not being validated in any of that. And I'm sorry, but partner, I hear the shame that you feel like a fool for driving him to a session when you were trying to help him with you were trying to help, and clearly things weren't as you had hoped for. But I'm sorry that you're taking on any guilt or shame or any of that, from that standpoint. So to me, it's the question is, I don't feel validated that this is a problem. It's being minimized. But I also, so one more thing, Dr. Rob, his CSAT refuses to acknowledge that this is a D-Day number 2. And it feels like that's something that feels really important rather than going, this is another issue. Um, uh, that it's to the level of another discovery day, and
Yeah,
yeah. But he came to her too, so to me this is
right,
very complicated. So it's not as cut and dried as like I was going through the phone and I found this stuff, and you know
right.
and yeah. So
Well, if I was a spouse, I mean, you have two options, I guess. You can say more reasons to distrust. They're probably back in it again. I need to have a disclosure, some kind of sit down with a therapist and go through everything. And I've lost complete trust in them. And here we are at the beginning. That's one option. I think the other option could be, you know what? And Tammy mentioned this. I'm really impressed that he told you. And he told you after his first session, pretty much. So, and by the way, I don't know whether she spoke in his ear or whatever, because that's what he's saying. I don't know what actually happened, but to get that physically close with the client when you've just met them would be completely inappropriate, no matter what they say or do. So I'm not sure what that was all about.
well,
But I
she
will
speaks
tell you,
into
go ahead.
his ear as a massage therapist,
Yeah,
to
I don't
find the
know.
trauma stored in his body. Yeah,
Okay.
to me this
So
feels,
let's, yeah.
yeah.
So if I was a sex addict, I am a sex addict. Oops. If I were him, sorry. If I were him, well, first of all, if I were him, I would not see a female massage therapist, period. And if you're a straight guy, seeing him, unless it is excuse my, a very, well, I don't even want to say that because people are attracted to all kinds of things. I don't believe that if you're heterosexual, you should be seeing a female massage therapist. I think it's a setup, even if you're not doing anything. I remember lying at that massage table and thinking, oh, well, maybe they touched me for that reason. And oh, if I wonder if they're going to do this. And if I did, so I didn't enjoy massages anyway, because my head was running a mile a minute about how I could maybe get something going or they wanted to. So I wouldn't recommend anyone I treat to see a female if they're straight. Um, I don't know of a massage therapist who would be working on EMDR because that's not really their
Correct.
expertise.
Yeah.
That's a therapeutic thing that a licensed person in EMDR certified will do. So I don't understand. Did the CSAT recommend this person? Because there are EMDR organizations you can go to online and say, who does EMDR? You can write Tammy, TAMI at Seeking Integrity, and she will know maybe some people who do that. But I wonder where the recommendation came from, because there's no way that your typical EMDR professional would put their hands on you, would be whispering in your ear. That just sounds really uncomfortable. I'd be sitting over here, you'd be sitting over there. There are people who go to what we call a somatic therapist, which is people who use body language and touch in order to work through trauma. I remember years and years ago, actually, someone was rubbing this hand and I was like, oh, whatever. And someone rubbed this hand and I burst into tears. I
Oh,
can tell you why, but
yeah.
a lot of feelings came up, or they touched your shoulder and there was abuse there. But this is not where I would want my spouse to be in this situation. If you said, they're going to EMDR with someone that they CSAT recommended, a man that they're seeing a case, and this is what EMDR is, I would feel more comfortable. So I don't understand why he's seeing this person, female, why it's someone that's touching him or massaging or any of that, because that's not EMDR. Don't know what that is. I do appreciate him coming to you. Maybe he went to the wrong person for whatever reason. And I think it's really important that he said, I'm uncomfortable. This is what happened. As a rule, addicts tend to not say those things. And the truth is, he could continue seeing her for weeks and weeks and weeks if there was something sexual going on and never tell you, which is what addicts do. So I can understand being afraid. I can understand being worried. I can maybe understand something might have happened or it didn't. I don't know. But the way I look at that is how amazing that this person was willing to come to you and say, I don't feel comfortable here. This is what happened. However, he wanted to book five more sessions. That doesn't feel so good to me. So as Tammy said, this is a little complicated. I believe that maybe nothing happened. I don't believe he didn't objectify. We all objectify. But I don't know what this person looked like or how old they were. Or we use something addicts, I don't know if you remember, relate to this, Tammy, the moral high ground, which means I didn't do anything with them and I didn't look at them. And well, of course, they're the ugliest person on the planet and you never would. But you take the moral high ground and say, I didn't do that, when the truth is you never would have with that person. It just sounds good. So I don't know what any of this means. I think there's a lot more to explore with him and with the therapist. There was one more thing. Oh, about objectification. So I say this a lot, but I need to say it. We objectify all the time. It's part of being human. And I worry when spouses say, oh, you looked there and you looked there. And I know you had this in your head or that in your head. You can't police somebody's looks or somebody's and what you believe they're feeling. And you certainly can't ask them every time you look at someone attractive, let me know, because that will destroy a relationship. So I think the issue is when I'm staring, when I'm going grocery store to catch them again. But I worry when spouses say, if you look at someone and you're objectifying, that means that you're at it again. It's a challenge for you guys. I think it could be a sign that we're back in the behavior, but and none of us have zero objectification. We always look at an attractive person and have feelings about it. So um, what makes him think that I believe he was only attracted to her and that's far as it went? I think people are attracted to all kinds of people, and I would be concerned about a spouse who said, "Oh, I'm never attracted to anybody, and I never look." That's not true. If you're human, you look. But the idea that looking is inevitably part of the addiction and going to lead back to the addiction, that's not necessarily true. Um, why do you feel like a fool for driving him there? I mean, you know, I may feel like a fool at dropping Tammy, who's an alcoholic, off at a friend's house, and three doors down, there's a bar. But I didn't drive her to the bar saying, oh, I hope she doesn't drink. I dropped her at her friend's house. You drop someone at a therapist who's been who is licensed, whatever that is. You wouldn't expect this to come up. So I think it's really unfair of you to say to yourself and judge yourself about driving him there or any of that. What is that about? Tell me about the bottom part. I'm not sure I understand if he said there's
Yeah.
nothing going on. How did that relate to the bottom part, do you think?
Well, so I want to back up to the, because like I've done EMDR, and
Me too.
no, my female therapist didn't touch me, like that. The EMDR is tapping, I'm tapping me, like, yeah.
Or
So
lights.
yeah, or lights, but yeah, but if there's touch, it's me touching, a
Right.
specific spot. So I do this one because I like the butterfly one. But anyway, the so I don't get that either, and I don't know what was being done, and I also don't know if he identified, I'm a sex
Oh,
addict, I'm here for work, and I've said, like Dr. Rob says, I have substance issues, and what, if I go to a doctor, I tell them all of this, I make sure I am set up for success. So if I'm an addict, I'm telling the person who's going to do anything with me, what my vulnerabilities are and what my boundaries are. My boundaries would be like, if there's touch, I'm with Dr. Rob, non-female would have been helpful, but
no,
you're,
I'm like thinking
oh,
to myself. You go ahead,
okay.
Tammy. I'm
Yeah,
just,
yeah. No,
my
but it's
brain
one of
is
those
working.
things where like it's up to me to set the parameters for what is going to be safe for me, and also safe so that I'm not coming home and telling my spouse. So now let's talk about the third. He left the house in a 30-day separation. And here's my challenge with that is, was this discussed, like, or was it, you get out of here for 30 days? Like, what was the, a 30-day separation, if it's agreed upon and is like, here's why we're doing it, here's what the purpose of it is, and here's how we're going to navigate that, great, well, okay, as long as there's a plan. If you're kicking them
Plan.
out for 30 days, and I don't know,
Right.
I'm not saying that you are, but I'm kind of reading, you need to leave because I'm triggered, and I'm bothered. So, and then he came back after 2 nights. Well, that feels like, if the agreement was that you're going to be gone for 30 days, and he came back and he didn't, there was no discussion. Again, this feels like massive communication, issues along that line. Said leaving home wasn't good for his sobriety, and maybe not, maybe like that, maybe
That's not your
the
problem.
distance from you is,
Right.
is a problem for him, and he has other choices. So it doesn't feel like there was a plan with any of this separation. It was like, you leave, and then, no, I'm coming back, but what was accomplished in that 2 days if there's no plan? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, to that piece, it's not helpful to send someone away for 30 days in anger. You can say, I'm angry and I really don't want you here. Um, and you could also say, I'm uncomfortable with what's happened and I need some space. But what is not useful is pointing your finger and saying, you need to get out of here. And because, as Tammy would say, boundaries are about me. I don't feel safe in this situation, not because you did this, you need to. That's not really helpful. Anyway, we say when you're pointing your finger at someone else that there's three or four fingers pointing back at you. Um, I do want to say one more thing. I agree, and I don't like, and if I was a therapist, I would not like the fact that if I saw someone and I was attracted to them and they were touching me, and that was part of the treatment, I would expect that he is going to go to his sponsor and say, I was attracted. I wonder if this is okay. And someone who he respects and is working with him would say, hopefully, as I would, no effing way. You're attracted. You're vulnerable. It doesn't matter who they are. You don't get to do this. So the fact that he had 5 sessions and then wanted more, even though he was attracted, is concerning to me. But I do want to say something to all of you. First of all, sex addicts are attracted to a rock. We can be attracted to a pencil. And I mean that it's so easy for us to objectify. Um, and what I mean about that is, just if someone's touching me, if someone's engaging with me, or even if they're just attractive, I'm going to objectify because I'm a sex addict. It is, I want to get this out. Um, it's not unusual for someone in therapy to be attracted to their therapist. We have some female therapists. Um, one of the first things they say to the clients is, you may be attracted to me because you're going to be attracted to a rock. And I just want you to know that that's not going to happen. And if it does, let me know and we can talk about it, because it needs to be out in the open. But if you're kind of looking at me sideways and you're not, that's going to be a problem. But there's an anticipation in our work. Listen, I know you're going to be attracted to me, just so you know that's never going to happen. If you have those feelings come up, let's talk about them. But for a therapist, for someone to be attracted when they're vulnerable and that person is in charge of helping them, um, that's a real trigger for us. So I can imagine that so many of us feel attracted, even non-addicts might feel attracted to their therapist. That's not unusual. Acting on it, not talking about it, going back to that therapist, if they haven't set some kind of boundary, that concerns me. So the fact that he was attracted, he went back, he knew it was uncomfortable, then he wanted to go back more, all of that really concerns me. The attraction to the therapist, that doesn't surprise me. Lots of people are attracted to their therapist. It's our job as therapists to say, I just want you to know, thank you for telling me. I appreciate that you told me, because I do want to know. I don't want it distracting. And that's not going to happen here. But we may get to talk about why and what it means that you felt attractive to me. So it's complex, as Tammy said, but I would be disappointed too if I felt like my spouse was more interested in going forward with a therapy that they liked, forget the attraction, than respecting how uncomfortable that would make me feel. So this is complicated, but I would not be happy, not so much about what he did or didn't do, but that his actions of staying in there and still being attractive and wanting more do not reflect somebody who's really watching out for their addiction. And trust me, when we are being aware of our addiction and working on it, not feeling it, the addict is over in their corner doing push-ups. So it's always there. It's always waiting to show up. And in this situation, he's more vulnerable than any addict should let themselves be. Um, yeah. So that's all I got to say about that.
Okay. So we'll
And
go on to the next one. My
good,
husband
thank
has
you.
porn-induced erectile dysfunction. Last acting out masturbation to porn date, according to him, is July of 23. He tried Viagra, it did not work well, and he did not like the side effects, so does not want to take it again. What else can be done to restore a normal sex life? Thanks.
Okay, so there is something called PIED, and let's just explain it what that is. It means that someone who is looking at a tremendous amount of porn, their relationship with sexuality is so intense. It's so many moving new images. It's so constantly intensely stimulating that when I just go to a regular person, I don't get aroused. I am so used to being aroused by all of these images and all this intensity and hours and hours and hours, that my experience of sexuality is that having erections for hours, being incredibly. So when I go to a person, you're not going to have that kind of excitement with a person, even if you're just starting to date them. And a lot of young men, by the way, who were starting, I talked about this today in my podcast, a lot of young men who haven't been very sexual, they're 23 or 24, have only looked at porn. They are very uncomfortable with a person because they haven't learned the skills to dating and hand holding and all that stuff. And plus, they don't get aroused by one person. So I don't know. It would be very unusual to me if if this person, your husband, has porn induced erectile dysfunction and he has not been aroused outside of porn since July of 2023, then those things don't make sense. If you have a porn-induced erectile dysfunction, that might last a month or two. But the reality is once the porn's gone away within a reasonable period of time, we don't have all of that stuff in our brain, and we are more able to begin to connect with someone we care about and have a sexual experience. So it makes no sense to me that it would be that long. So here's a couple of options. Either he's still acting out and hasn't told you. That is an option. My first go-to always is there a medical problem? That's my job as a therapist. My first job is to not say, oh, let's talk about your trauma. My first job is to rule out medical issues. And so I can understand what, not, he may have gone to his GP, his internist, and said, I'm having trouble with the addiction erections, and his GP gave him Viagra. But that doesn't mean that that is the problem. He may need to go to a urologist and find out if there are issues. Now, if he gets erections in his sleep, If he gets erections when he's looking at porn, then he doesn't have a physical problem. Then he has an intimacy sexual problem. I don't think necessarily that there are two things being put together here, which is he doesn't get aroused by me. He doesn't want to be sexual with me like he did, and he doesn't get erections and all that. That may have to do with an intimacy issue or a fear issue or a shutting down issue, which is a lot of what we do when we get sober. Is it's very difficult to have meaningful connection with someone that we care about. So it could very much be a psychological issue related to being sexual with you, the person who he's closest to. So the fact that he's not getting erections is not necessarily, in my mind, have anything to do with the fact that he looked at a lot of porn and had erectile dysfunction related to it. If he has stopped acting out, and I have no judgment, right or wrong, who knows? I certainly don't know. Then there are other reasons than PIED. PIED, if you really have that a couple of months, it's going to disappear from your head. You can't hold on to that intensity that long. So either he is still acting out, or there is some kind of emotional or physical issue that is preventing him from getting aroused and erections. But I think these two things are being conflated and put together, and I'm not sure that they are related. In fact, they don't sound related. However, if I was your spouse and I struggled to be intimate with you and emotional with you and sexual with you, as all sex addicts do with intimate situations, it would be much easier for me to say, I think I still have IED than to say to you, I'm really struggling with arousal and erections and sex. Maybe we need to slow down. Maybe I think Tammy wrote sensate focus in the chat. What Tammy is talking about is there are other ways. First of all, sex is not necessarily penetrative. In fact, I think intimacy is rubbing someone's shoulder, holding their hand, massaging. There are a lot of ways to enter arousal other than, okay, we're hugging each other and that needs to happen. And so maybe what Tammy's writing about is that there are ways to evolve a connection that will lead to arousal. But just getting in bed and saying, okay, here's your body, here's my body, and let's get off, that may not happen. Plus, I wonder how old he is. That kind of crosses my mind. I have to tell you, at 63, doesn't quite happen as much as it did. I mean, the kind of arousal, level of arousal in situations that used to arouse me just don't. So there are so many questions here that I don't have the answers to, but I don't think it's PIED if he has truly stopped acting out. That would not make sense to me. Tammy, do you want to add to that?
I do. So Sensate Focus Touch, Masters and Johnson, and Dr. David Fawcett has talked about that on webinars and things before too. And then the Couples Guide to Intimacy, how sexual reintegration therapy can help your relationship heal. That's Dr. Bill and Dr. Ginger Burkaw and Dr. Rob, lots of doctors there, did a podcast on sex, love, and addiction with Doctors Burkaw, on that very topic. So it was written a while ago, so I think there's some codependent language in there, so be careful. But otherwise, I think it's good information. And I was almost laughing because I was, how else can we restore a normal sex life? And I'm like, what is normal? Like, to me, it's
Healthy.
like
The word is
healthy.
healthy.
That's yeah. Like, yeah, it's not like prescribed. It's like what works for the two of you. And so, so all of the things that Dr. Rob said, but like taking the focus off of like, we need to have a normal sex life and it needs to be X amount of times, or whatever, like just can you go back to, can we just hold hands? Can we touch? Like all of the things that are not sexual, because you heard Dr. Rob say, intimacy, vulnerability, and sexuality. Like it's not sexual and intimacy. That's one form of intimacy, but it's one of those things where connecting in a real and meaningful way, in a vulnerable way, is terrifying to addicts. So I do wonder about that. What Dr. Rob said as well. So,
Hey,
some
Tammy,
options. Go ahead.
if you don't mind, and I know this
Mhm.
isn't your favorite thing, but because I make a lot of mistakes, but I'm going to put in the chat for everyone
And you put it in
a
the chat,
link.
not in the you have to hit chat at the bottom, not in the Q&A.
Okay, you tell
Well,
me if
you
it
did
went to
it. Good
the right
job.
place.
Yeah, well,
So
you
what
did it to
I've sent you,
host and panelists. So I'm gonna actually,
oh, thank you.
yeah. So
Okay, so
you're
let me say
getting
what I sent
there.
you while Tammy's sending it to the right place, which is there is a particular, so I have a podcast. We have over 1.5 million downloads
Oh, yeah, Pat
because
Love.
people really
Yeah.
want to talk about sex, love, and addiction and all of these issues. And I've had most of the people who've heard it said it really helped me explain the process, the problem. Podcasts are free, right? But the one thing I wanted to say to you about that is I sent you one of my podcasts called, see if I can find it. This one is called um, Recovering Your Sexual Life or something like that. Let me see if I can find it.
With Dr. Pat
Um,
Love. So another
Right. It's
doctor.
Restarting Your Sex Life with
Yeah.
Dr. Pat Love, who's a friend of mine and Tammy's. And she writes a lot about relationships, sexuality. I sent you the link. If not that one, there's probably a number of podcasts about managing a return to sexuality, restarting it. But that one is specific to how do we restart our sex life if we have been dealing with this? And I love Dr. Pat Love. But you might start there and really do some listening and education with your spouse. I don't really know what's going on, but I don't think you do either. So there's a lot of research and things that you can do to learn more and try to work this out. Tammy, should we
Next
keep
one.
going?
Betrayed partner here. His addiction was revealed 2 months ago, together for 4 years. He continues to lie and act out almost in front of me as I have his location. His behavior feels evil after everything he put me through. Is it just a broken person or full blown psychopath? Is this typical behavior? He has shown no emotion besides frustration and shame, no tears. And when I leave him to allow him to live how he wants, he will obsessively reach out with apologies and promises. We've seen this before.
Sounds like I would love you to jump in, Tammy, because you have a lot to say here before I get started.
Yeah, no, but when I leave him and allow him to live how he wants, he obsessively reaches out and apologizes. And
Of
Dr.
course.
Rob does this all the time. Come here, go away. Come here, go away. Come here, go away. Yeah. And so now, if you leave him, which is your healthy boundaries, you're not safe to be around me. But in his mind, he's going, "You're abandoning me. You're abandoning me. I need you." But he's not apparently yet willing to do the work that he needs to do. You're only 2 months in, but at 2 months, if he was doing 90 12-step meetings in 90 days, he'd be 2/3 of the way there already.
We have courses
I was going
that
to say,
we
we have an
teach.
online work group, Sex Addiction 101. He continues to lie and act out, and so at some point, yeah, I mean, you guys can continue this pattern for a long time. Do I think he's a psychopath? That would take somebody really qualified to do that. What I
Right.
hear is somebody deeply in his addiction and not choosing to lean into, oh, there is recovery. Now, one of the things I'm going to share with you, this sounds like a great case for a Dr. Rob expert consultation, because he would have both of you in front of him on Zoom. It's a 2-hour consultation, but he's unpacking what's going on for each of you and finding out the level of commitment. I think, for each of you to be either in the relationship, and for the person struggling with addiction to go, okay, I'm willing to do this. I hear often from the people that participate in those that partners feel validated, but both of you can find hope. Like, oh wait, like you said, is he a psychopath? Maybe he's just an addict with a lot of brokenness, but oh wait, there's really a path forward that I can do that would help me, and then I can be connected in a real and meaningful way with someone who loves me. So it's challenging. And tears, honestly, when I hear addicts crying, it's usually they're crying because they got caught or something like that.
Crying for
The tears,
themselves. Poor
yes, I was
me.
gonna say the tears wouldn't be for you, it'd be about, yeah. So
Right.
the not seeing tears is not, that isn't an issue to me. But what I hear is somebody who is struggling and not getting the help that he needs, and therefore is not going to be able to be in a real and meaningful relationship with you until and unless he gets help. So that's my thoughts.
Well, I have a whole list of things.
Okay.
So, first of all, I don't know if you heard me say this story before, but I worked with a man who was a heroin addict. And during the height of his addiction, he went into his kids' college fund and he took every penny they had and in to spend on heroin. And you would think if you looked at that snapshot, oh my God, this guy, he took money out of his kids' and what a psychopath. But when he was sober from his addiction and he was really working on himself, he realized what it meant to him, his children, his family. He worked 3 jobs to put that money back in their account. So I don't think I can engage who someone is or the meaning of their personality or until they've stopped. And not only stopped, but they've really taken a good look at themselves and have worked on this. I don't hear any effort or even action or understanding on his part that you need to take classes, you need to see therapists, you need to go to a treatment center, you need to consult with me. I don't hear I hear what he's not doing and what your fears are. Nothing I say as an addict is going to make you feel better. What will make you feel better is me taking responsibility for this problem. And therefore, I'm going to read this book. I'm going to go to this class. I'm going to, what's missing from here, two things. Number one is, what is he doing about this? Is he just like trying, and I wrote this down, this is someone who seems to me like they're trying to shut you up. Basically, as long as you don't take an action and you don't want to leave or whatever, I'll do whatever I want. But then when you really threaten me with your leaving, oh my God, I got to get it together and deal with this. But it's not really about dealing with the problem, it's about keeping you around. So to me, this sounds like somebody who doesn't really understand the problem, who isn't really taking it seriously, and is more in the game right now to continue to do what he wants to do and to shut you up, and to keep you from being upset, which means by you're not knowing about it. Doing it in front of you, I don't know what that means, but I can tell you a lot of it doesn't mean his intention is for you to see it. It may simply mean that he's not that good. He's not a good liar. He doesn't, if he means to show it to you, I don't understand that because that is a deliberate attempt to hurt somebody. Um, but all this aside, what are you doing for yourself? If you have someone that you love who has completely gone insane and you can't bring them back from insanity, and believe me, active addiction, they need support therapy, they need groups, they need treatment, they need a whole lot of things that you cannot offer because you're not a therapist, you're not a professional who would expect you to. What I would hope you would do is go to some support groups, read some material, go to our Betrayed Partners work group, understand how it's affecting you and what boundaries you can set for yourself, because this may go on forever. How are you taking care of yourself? I see you looking at him and trying to diagnose him. I don't know, I don't know what he is. I don't know why he does this. I don't know what it means to you or him, but I do know that you are in crisis. I do know that you are feeling unseen, unheard, and that this person, I guess, wants to hurt me, and maybe they do. But how much are you learning, taking care of yourself? How much are you growing? Are you in a support group where other partners are dealing with the betrayal and the anger? I'll say one more thing. When I am really angry and really hurt and really destroyed, as many partners are, certainly in the beginning, why wouldn't I want to call somebody a sociopath? Why wouldn't I want to say that they belong in jail? I'm so angry, and how could they do this to me? Addicts do all kinds of things to people, but they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about how to get away with it and still be in relationship with you. So to me, this is an addict who is what we call in pre-contemplation. He's just sort of thinking about it, but mostly he's trying to keep you quiet. You are reacting to the crisis in your life, which he hasn't quite gotten to. You need to decide, what can you do? Tammy, do you want to live with him? Do you want to be around him? Do you want to just be around and not talk? What is it that will make you feel safe? Because sitting around in this situation is not good for you. And I do hear that there may be motivation to want you to be in the relationship. And if you go take care of yourself and say, I'm not going to deal with this anymore, I'm going to kick you out or do whatever, it may occur to him that he wants to keep you around, which it sounds like. By the way, you're very important. I want to say to you, spouses, we can dismiss you. We can push you aside. We can say, well, they're not important to me, or they're fat, or they're ugly, or whatever it is to give us permission to act out. We will say, give ourselves all the reasons in our relationship why we deserve and feel entitled to act out. However, if you move 1 inch away from me, all of a sudden, oh my God, you're so important and I don't want you to leave. And all of a sudden we get in touch with how important you are to us. As long as we can dismiss it and act out, as long as he doesn't know or she doesn't know, I'm good. So so bottom line is, I think you're so early in the process and there isn't enough activity going on for you and him. It sounds like you're looking at a problem and feeling the problem, but you don't have any direction or solutions. And if you write Tammy, Tami, at seeking integrity. She'll give you a support group. She'll direct you to one of my consults. Tammy gets these calls all the time when people don't know what to do and they're looking for direction because they just can't take it anymore. That's when you call Tammy. When you write to Tammy. So anyway, Tammy, is there anything else you want to add? But I think this person needs to take
No,
care of
yeah,
themselves.
I put resources. The Betrayed Partner Work Group starts June 23rd. It's the first time we've offered it on a weekend. So I put the link in. The Empowered Women's Retreat. There's a few spots left for the August retreat. And then I also put, there were 2 webinars in May, one with Kristen Snowden about should I stay or should I go? It was like 10 questions to ask so that you can kind of process through and journal. And then Debbie Allen did a great webinar with 2 partners, one who stayed and one who left. And non-judgmental. It's just more good information as you're, trying to figure out what you need to do in this moment. But like Dr. Rob said, healthy boundaries for you are about you and not about him. So,
And I
okay.
want to remind you that 50 to 60% of what we do is free. All these groups, the work groups are training, they're cost money. Me, consultation, I cost money. Treatment centers cost money. But support groups, education, webinars, all these things that you can gain information from, my podcast, all that is free. You can come a
Mm-hmm.
long way in your education and self-awareness without spending a penny on treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then there's what do we do about it?
Yeah, the work group though, it's $395 for 6 weeks, 90 minutes per week, live facilitated. I mean, those are such good value. And we have sex addiction 101, porn addiction 101, out of the dark. I mean, we've got a bunch of different ones. I shared at the beginning before we hit record, Dr. Eddie has started, he only does them twice a year on the inner child, and that started today, so people
People
could
love
still
that.
join. Yeah, he does a great job with that. So again, you know how to reach me because Dr. Rob has shared. And so reach out if you've got questions about any of that. Okay, next question is a 2-parter. Hello, my husband and I have been married for almost 8 years. D-Day came 3 months into our marriage, and we spent about 3 years with individual and couples therapy before sex addiction was diagnosed. We both started seeing CSATs and had disclosure. For the last 3 years, my husband has been going to meetings and seeing his therapist, but it has come out that he has been lying to everyone about his sobriety.
Uh-huh.
He was compulsively masturbating and stuck in fantasy sexting, seeing people for hookups. I am very devastated and I feel we are back to square one. I'm disappointed in my husband and also in his therapist. My husband struggles daily with his addiction and I'm scared to stay. It all feels hopeless. What do you think my husband needs to be doing?
Well, a couple of things. What worries me most in this whole situation is lying. That's what someone's acting out, they return to acting out, they're struggling. And it's not just you. I really, and I say this to guys in treatment, when I'm in the treatment center, I see clients, we do residential treatment, and I talk to the guys, and it's not unusual for one of them to have lied to their therapist or lied to their group. And honestly, that disturbs me more than lying to you partners, because devastating to you. But here is the group. Here is the situation where I am seeking to heal, and we all have this issue, and we rely on each other. And we're talking about the problem, and so for someone to go to a support group or a therapist and lie, that really concerns me, because why the F are they even there? Except, so if someone's lying to me, it means they want admiration. They want people to think they're great. It's more important. Their image is more important than the reality. And that really concerns me for who they are and what they're struggling with. I don't know about the therapist, because the honest truth is, number one, we can't come to you and talk to you about our patients' issues because there is confidentiality and we could lose our licenses. So if you're angry at the therapist because they didn't come to you and tell you things, that's not something that we can do. Um, and I don't know how much this person was lying to the therapist. I can't tell you how many. Tammy and I had this discussion, and I did some education right just recently about this. That I work with therapists who say we have such a good therapeutic relationship, and I've been seeing for them for a year, and I can't believe they lied to me. And I'm thinking, well, of course they lied to you. They're an addict. So the fact that we lie to therapists all the time is not unusual. By the way, just a point that it's aside. It is really, really sad for me when I have a partner say, we went to couples therapy for a year and I was really dedicated to us being better. And he said that, or he in this case, said that he was going to do everything he can to make our relationship better. He just didn't happen to mention the affair, the acting out. And so, of course, couples therapy was never going to be useful because there was a lie in the room that directly affected the relationship. It was never discussed. So I don't know what happened, but I can tell you we are very good at lies. We are very good at lying to our therapist. So I don't know what was really going on there, but I'm deeply concerned. 3 years of going to a group and lying. What is the benefit of going to a group for support and then not letting them have the ability to support you? So my answer to your question, this is someone who should be in residential treatment. No question in my mind. This is someone who needs to come sit down, come here, and we will bring them into treatment. We will work with them because if you're offered all of the opportunities to get well, maybe you don't take them in the beginning. Maybe you're struggling like that person who thinks earlier, pre-contemplation, whatever. But this is someone who knows what they're supposed to be doing. They say they're doing it. They lie to everybody. Even in the most ideal of circumstances, they're not taking advantage of all of it. Maybe they're not able to, or maybe they don't want to. This is somebody who I think if they can get to this degree, compulsively masturbating, stuck in fantasy and sexting and seeing people for hookups and lying about all of that. So I really think this is someone who is probably not going to make it in outpatient therapy. They've already proved it. We look at treatment as a continuum. So if groups and therapy stop you from the behavior, great. If you need to take a course or go to a weekend in addition to that, great. But if you have all of that in front of you and the best you can do is keep lying and continue to do it and try to pretend that everything's fine, then I think you need a higher level of care. So, Tammy, I don't know about you, but my first thought was this is someone who needs treatment because they've had every opportunity to get well and they're just practicing the disease. What do
Did
you
you see
think?
what I put in the chat? I put
No, because I don't read
residential
chats. I'm
treatment,
so
14,
focused on,
21, or 28
oh,
days. So yes,
right.
like I completely align with you. So it all feels hopeless. I want to talk about that. I was like, I don't think he's hopeless, and I'm sad when people lie in 12 step, and it happens, but when people lie consistently in 12 step, you know what, guys that come to our treatment program and then have to go back to their 12 step and go, I was completely lying to you for years. That's probably more difficult than the having to come clean with you. It's just different. I'm not trying to, sugarcoat, anything that he's doing. But I want to go back to the part where you said it all feels so hopeless. Okay. I don't think he's hopeless. And regardless of what he does or doesn't do, you can be okay. Like I shared the two webinars, from May about stay or go. And part of it is like, you can stay regardless of what he's doing. But if your joy and everything is based on if he's doing okay in recovery, I mean, that I use the analogy. It's like the pinball machine. You're waiting for somebody else to hit the flippers, and you don't know where the ball is going to go. And so, it's like at some point, we have to
Tammy,
go
they don't have flippers anymore. It's all
on
elect.
pinball
I just want
machines.
to let you
Oh,
know.
is it all buttons? I don't know. Like I don't
It's
do that
all,
stuff.
yeah, it's all
I don't do
just
arcades. So,
saying. No more
yeah.
flippers.
So
No, you've
okay.
dated
Sorry.
yourself really well.
I'm dated. So it's okay. But
I'm kidding you. You know I'm kidding
no,
you.
no, I know, but I'm like, okay. So here's the deal. The Empowered Women's Retreat, perfect fit for you because we're going to talk with you about processing through the hurt. I mean, it's all about healing for the women. We don't talk about him. Like, it's not about him. This is about you getting the help that you need to be able to move forward. We talk about internal boundaries and external boundaries, and how do we have a plan for what that is for each person, because those vary. But I love the anger work. It's processing through it. People look different when they come to that from the beginning to the end. They're in their bodies. They are in a community, a little community, because there aren't that many of us but we're connected, and we know we're not alone, and we're not trying to fight this all by ourselves, so to speak. So I would really encourage you to consider that for your healing. Again, all of these things are options. Everybody takes what they want, takes what they need, and leaves the rest. But I hear the pain for you.
And I just want to say one more thing, Tammy, which is let's take all of the content out. What has happened? Who did what? Who said what? If I was married to you and you were consistently lying to me, what would that mean for me? Forget what the what the lying is about. If I'm living with someone who has proven that over and over and over again, they don't only lie to me, but they might lie to their best friend, or they're going to lie to a support group, or how would I want to take care of myself in a situation where the person I'm living with and depend on is lying all the time? Because where it would leave me is, what else are they lying about? Are they lying about our finances? Are they lying about, when they see the grocery clerk? Are they having an affair? Everything becomes suspect. And so, what are you going to do for yourself about the fact that you live with someone who lies all the time? And they went through the process. They did disclosure. They went to therapy. It's not like there hasn't been a chance, and yet they continue to lie. What are you going to do for yourself? That's not a situation that I would feel safe in, because I don't know when the next what is it that falls? The next shoe is going to drop, because you have no idea. So I'm very concerned about you and how you were living your life. And I'll give one quick example. Do you have sex with this person? I don't know, but I certainly wouldn't do that without a condom, because I don't know, since you're being lied to, have they had sex with someone else and not protected you? You wouldn't know, because they would lie. So this issue goes all the way to the basics of your health, your stability, all of that. And I encourage you to think about, if my daughter or my best friend was living with someone who lied constantly, what would I tell them to do? I think that might help a little bit. Okay, Tammy, let's move
Okay, get an
along.
STD test too while he said the condoms. Like
Please,
I always
all
say,
of you
yeah,
spouses,
yeah, please, yeah. Okay, my partner recently told me that he would put more effort into his recovery if he knew that this was the relationship he truly wanted. Our relationship was not great and filled with unmet needs on both ends before discovery. He is currently working with a CSAT and going to groups, so he is trying but continues to be defensive. We are not married because he has not wanted to commit to marriage. Together for 10 years, 3 months post D-Day. I'm wondering how much relationship issues stem from sex addiction and if relationship issues are separate from addiction. How do you keep doing this hard work for a relationship that was not perfect or great to start with?
so Tammy, we're not in an intimate relationship, and you live in a different state, and we're both married. I want everyone to hear that, but I'm going to use this Tammy as a role model. Tammy, we have spent 10 years together, 10 years, but I'm not sure if I want to be with you. Like, what the F is that? What would that leave you? Forget all the rest of it. 10 years of my life. And you turn around to me and well, sorry, 10 years of your life, Tammy. And I turn around and I say to you, well, I'm not sure if I want to be with you. What would that do to you?
I would be devastated because I have
And what would
now
you
spent
do?
10 years of my life with this person committing. I think the part that really caught me is that it wasn't perfect. I do you know anybody who has a perfect relationship? I don't know a single soul. But to me, this feels like, hey, I'm looking out at like there could be, a better fish in the sea or whatever it is. I'm using really bad analogies today. So, there could be something better. I may not have, the commitment issue. That to me is telling.
And I'm going to jump on what Tammy said. And if you give me too hard a time, and you really confront and challenge me about this, well, maybe this isn't the right relationship for me. So there's kind of this thing that we were talking about, which is, I want to work on this and I really care about you. If you, but let me let you know that I'm here. And so don't push me too hard. And so I'm going to say something that I rarely say. Tammy knows I rarely say this. I would leave this person. I would leave them in a heartbeat. Why in the world would you want to spend another minute with somebody who, after 10 years, cannot commit to you and is acting out all over the place? And I don't, currently working with a CSAT, going to groups, whatever. Who cares? If you take, again, all the content out and you're saying this person says they love me and I've spent 10 years, that's 10 years you might have grown a different kind of family. I don't know how old you were. That some people might have had kids. Some people might have joined another family, married someone else, or been involved with someone else, and changed your entire life with happiness or joy. I'm not going to ask you why you spent 10 years with this person without having a firmer commitment. I will say that hope springs eternal, and this person knows how to get you on the hook and keep you on the hook. I don't know if you are capable of saying, first of all, I don't know if I'd want to stay with this person now. It's interesting because I love this. This is such an addict thing. You know, I may not want to stay with you. I'm just thinking about, well, if I were you, I'd say, you don't want to stay with me. How about this? After what you've been doing, why in the world would I want to stay with you? So what I hear is you're being victimized, and it's the carrot. He's holding out a carrot, which, but you're never going to actually be able to get it. He's already strung you along for all these years. So if I were you, I would not trust myself enough to believe that I wouldn't be pulled back into all of this. If it were me, I would have as much distance from them as possible so that I begin to think about for myself, is this time well spent? And how do I want to go forward for me? Um, Now, if you've been with someone for 25 years and you have three kids and a family and you're in your 60s, and that's a very different situation, but he doesn't want to commit to marriage, but you've been together 10 years. Uh, is there any commitment? What about your finances? What about your stability? What about all of that? He just, here's another way of saying it. I'm sorry. I can say I don't want to be married to you. I can say to you, well, I don't want to make a commitment that's going to mean I'm going to be responsible to you. I want to run my own show. And so there's a reason why this person hasn't committed, but I have to put it in your lap. Why have you been willing to sit around hoping for something that has never happened? Well, now you know he was acting out. He was distracted. He wasn't. But this is the time for me to come forward and say, oh my God, I might lose you. I have so much I need to do. I have pushed you away. So what I don't hear is responsibility taking. Anyway, I would leave this person in a heartbeat. That's me. I wouldn't waste another moment on them, and I would take care of me for me, and then I might look at what happens in the future. But this makes me angry for you. On the other hand, you chose to be there. And if it were me, I would get the F out based on the situation you described. And I never say that to people. Tammy,
The only
rescue
thing
me
I'm going to
here.
add is, well, the only thing I'm going to add is, real recovery. If he really starts digging in, and you said he's doing some things, that takes 2 to 5 years. So, like, are you okay with waiting 2 to 5 years to see what his actions, not his words, are doing? Yeah, I really dislike the blame shifting. I get more than dislike. I get angry too with the blame shifting. Well, there's so many unmet. Like, you aren't meeting my needs. I'm hanging around with you for 10 years. Well, what an amazing guy. Well, I'm going to still act out. I'm doing all of these things that were lying to you. So I think, this is one of those. I would work with a qualified professional to really look at, the pros and the cons. And I hear this often. Oh, I love him so much. And, you can love somebody and not be in a relationship with them. It cannot work out for lots of reasons. You get to pick. It's your life. We
Right.
have spouses. We're good. So,
And I want to repeat
but
that. Is this the life you want?
yeah,
Do you want to go another 10 years being in this situation? I think you get to choose, how do I want my life to be and how do I want to spend my time? I don't hear joy here. I don't hear. And you know
yeah,
what? Here's the good news.
unmet
You're not
needs.
married.
Yeah.
You're not married. So you can walk away if that's what you want to do. Okay. Tammy, let's keep on moving.
As the betrayed partner, how do you deal with a sense of injustice? I have left my sex addict and feel that now he is free to engage in these affairs guilt free. A handful of partners knew of me, and there were multiple others that believe that they are in some kind of relationship with him. Do I let them know who he is? This is all still a secret to everyone. So I've had this before, and
Thank you.
yeah, because here's the deal. When somebody's in a relationship, you know what? When the ex, comes up and starts saying bad things, it's just sour grapes. You know, Nobody ever is going to believe that this person is. It's not your job.
Right.
That's not your job. Your job is to work on healing you. Yes, there is injustice. That's called grief work. This is grief work for you. You have plenty to work on with you. You are not going to save the world from him. No, nobody's going to listen. You can start a club afterwards, of people that have, been previously betrayed. But right now, guess what? you have plenty to do just to work on taking care of you. Debbie McCrae did a 2-part webinar. I posted some previously recorded webinars on grief. Great place to start. That would be part of the work at the Empowered Women's Retreat. I would love to see you come and work on that. And again, I it's easy to focus on how unjust this is, and I need to go do that. And guess what? That's a distraction. I don't have to then focus on how hurtful this is. This hurts. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But that's the work for you to get through this, so you don't get stuck in that. Like trust me, you can get stuck, for years of like worrying about the injustice of him rather than the joy for you, as you move forward.
Yeah, I mean, what I hear is how do I work through my anger, my disappointment, my hurt. The word I wrote down was indignant, which is, and really what I think you'd like to do is punish him. How could you do this to me now? And I've left you and you're still going at it. I'm going to punish you. I'm going to let everyone in your life know what you've done and know what you've been doing. And basically, I'm going to make your life miserable. He's made your life miserable. You made a decision to take care of yourself or whatever ever that was, and you left. Whatever he does now is his business. If he's an alcoholic and you left him because of his drinking, he can drink and drive. He can drive into trees. He can get arrested for a DUI. What makes me sad about this, to be honest, is that you're leaving and you're taking care of yourself and your commitment didn't matter to him. He was just able to say, well, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. And, if I'm not with you, I'll be with someone else. And that, I don't think you've been treated well. And so I can understand the rage and the disappointment and the upset. But I will say this to you, it's not your job to make my life miserable. You left me, which means it's my life now. And if I want to screw it up, I'll screw it up myself. I would rather see you rather than trying to find justice or poison his well. What is it? The best revenge is, what is it? What is
Living
the best
well.
revenge?
Living well is best revenge.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Why don't you take your revenge by becoming a shining star of happiness within your own life? And then he might turn around and say, oh my God, what was I thinking? He or she is so wonderful. But if you want to spend your time in resentment, anger, hurt, and punishment, is that how you want to live your life? And I'm not saying that the feelings are going to go away. They're going to be there. Our love for people, our connection to the people, our hurt for, that doesn't just go away. It sticks with us for a long time. But do you want to act out? Do you want to act out your anger and your disappointment by making his life miserable? I understand that. I'd like to take a gun and shoot him after what he's done, but guess what? You're going to go to jail. So I would much rather that you deal with your grief, because that's what this is, grief about the fact that this was someone I cared about. This is someone I had hopes and dreams for, and I've been treated so unjustly and so badly that I felt I had to leave and take care of myself. The best revenge is to have a good life. And so if you left him, something tells me that you are happier not with him than being with him. Let him go be a crazy person. Let him ruin someone else's life. Let him ruin his own life. You have chosen to take care of you, and that means that it is no longer your responsibility or your job or your concern what the F he does. Leaving him, by the way, physically is not the same as leaving. And part of what I hear is you left physically, but emotionally, you're very much still in the game. And I say this all the time. I'm going to say it to you guys. The opposite of love is not hate. And I hear a lot of hatred in here. The opposite of love is indifference. It's not you motherfucker, and I can't believe, and I'm going to go get you. I'm going to tell everyone. That means you're still in the game. Distancing yourself emotionally means, well, you can do whatever you want. I'm living my life and I'm going to live my best life. And if you want to screw up yours, go right ahead. So what I hear is physically you have moved away. Emotionally, you're very much still in the game. And I'm not sure that's really good for you at all. And by the way, what difference does it make if you let these other women know anything? You don't have a relationship with them. I might let my best friend know if he was going after them, but I'm not going to let these women, let them find out their own issues and their own drama, just like you had to. Um, because they're probably doing things that they shouldn't be doing with him, and they'll have their outcome. Um, but it's not your job to take charge of other people's lives. Take charge of your own life, no matter how much you deserve that. What's the word? Deserve to be, I don't know. No matter how much you deserve to feel good about having shown him, that's not really how I'd want to spend my time in my life. I would want to show someone how happy I am without them. So Tammy, I was 3 minutes late, so we can take another question because I know
Okay.
you.
Yeah, well, and I've been listening to you, but I'm okay. So okay, here, let's do this one. I'm gonna put so this one
Whatever you
is
want.
hang on. I gotta find it. Partner and addict. So it's from 521. Partner and addict here together watching 33 years together. Discovery Day was 6 months ago. We have had sex many times since D-Day. The sex has been more connected than when we were married. Wait, then while we were married. Wait. But we are curious about ramifications of
I
having
think what
sex
it's
while so
saying is
early
our
in the
sex
recovery.
life has been better in our marriage since this happened.
Okay.
Um, That's what I'm reading. So our sex life has been more connected than it had ever been. That's what I'm reading
Okay. Yeah.
this.
So, and we get this question a lot. So it's like the basic question is we're worried about having sex so early in the recovery process. We will both be starting to see a CSAT next week. So
So what's the question in here? I know there's a question. How would you
the
ask it,
question
Tammy?
is like discovery was 6 months ago. We're
Right,
having a lot of sex.
right.
And is that a problem? That's
So
like, I get this question all the time and I know you do too.
let's first turn to you before you turn to the relationship. Dr. Rob says this all the time, and I did come up with this. I don't think anyone else did. I can't imagine you trust him or her. I can't imagine that you feel safe after everything that has gone on. Why do you have sex with someone you don't trust? Why do you have sex with someone with whom you don't feel safe? So what I'm curious about is what is the motivation for being sexual? Is it to make sure they stay with me? Is it to make sure that we feel bonded? Sex can be better after. Had spouses say, well, now I know what's going on. And now I know the problem, and now I feel closer to them because everything's open, and I now I understand why they've been distant and all that. Honesty is arousing. Feeling like you know your partner fully, especially after you've been lying to you forever, is a really good feeling. But I agree with you that I do. You're saying you're starting with a professional in a week. You're saying you've been together 33 years and your sex life probably hasn't been great lately, but all of a sudden it's wonderful. Why? What is your motivation as a partner to open yourself up literally and figuratively to someone who is probably going to hurt you again? You don't have the trust and the background of trust because he or she is not, I don't remember he or she, you don't have the trust in them to not hurt you, that they're on the right road, that they're not going to give you an STD. You don't even know if they're still doing it. You really don't. So the sex may be good, but my concern is not, is it good for, my concern is not, is it good for the relationship? My concern is it not as it good for the addict going forward. My concern is it good for you? Does it make sense for you to put yourself in a situation where you've been lied to for 33 years and or some part of it, and in the last 6 months you found out there was a problem? I don't think that that would motivate me to choose to be sexual. So my big word lately is intent. What is your intent in being sexual? Because I don't think, how can you get closer to each other when there's all these secrets and there's all intimacy is built on vulnerability and opening up and being real and taking the risk that if I am honest and clear with you and that you might leave me, you might be disappointed, you may not want to be with me. That is intimacy created by vulnerability. I don't hear there's been a lot of vulnerability or openness in this relationship. So then I would question, what is the reason to be sexual? It feels good, great. You have the best sex you've ever had, good for you. But is this the right time for you to? One more thing. when I am sexual with a partner, it brings me closer to them. Is this the best time for you to open yourself up emotionally and be closer to this person? Because if it were me, the other side of the closeness is if they're still lying, if they're still acting out, I'm going to hate myself. I'm going to hate them. And I'm going to say to myself, what the heck was I thinking? So I think that it is probably best. Here's another example. My husband is an alcoholic, but he hasn't had a drink in 6 months and he's feeling really good about himself. So I think we can go to a few bars and meet friends at the bar. Well, things may be good and he hasn't been drinking, but why in the world would you want to put yourself in a situation where he is triggered and vulnerable like that? So I'm more interested in how it could negatively affect you. And are you having sex and emotional connection with someone that you don't trust? Because then you're betraying yourself. Tammy, we need to stop, and I would love it if you added to that for a
I
moment.
was like, and if you trust him, I would honestly examine that, because just stopping the problematic behavior is abstinence. And if you guys are just starting with qualified professionals, and I don't know, maybe he's been going to, a daily 12-step meeting and working with a sponsor, and he may be through all 12 steps by now. Great. But if he's just stopped the problematic behavior, like there's so much more. And I'm sorry, but like, to me, this, you're, oh, we're feeling really connected. Yeah, well, that's a in the
Maybe
moment
the
you feel
sex is
really
the thing
good.
that's
Yeah,
keeping.
yeah, exactly. But you're, like Dr. Rob said, that there isn't the intimacy of being real and connected, because there's a whole bunch of things that are, probably the undercurrents underneath all of that. So it's kind of like the false hope of like, well, if we have sex and we feel good in the moment because we feel really good.
Right.
But, and as long as we're doing that, then we don't have to examine all that other, unpleasant stuff. So
And I want to
anyway.
say one thing about that. In situations like this, I think there are two people who are trying their best to avoid pain. And even though difficult things have happened, they want to maintain the closest they have. They don't want to grieve. They don't want to be angry. And so neither one. So they're holding on to this piece and saying, well, as long as this piece is intact and it feels good, then maybe things are better for us. And maybe I can have hope. And, I don't know what your future will bring, but you have to start your relationship all over again. Before you're having sex, could you get to know each other? Could you express your anger? Could you hold hands? Why do you have to go to sex? Could you go to holding each other or being kind? There are a lot of ways. So I think you're right to ask the question, but I think the reasons you're asking it are not the right reasons. I'm more concerned about you and your stability and your mental health, and why are you willing to let this go on when you have been so devastated? Because no, it doesn't sound healthy to me. Tammy, love to you. Be at peace.
You
I
too.
know I'll
Yes.
see
I
you
hope
in the
you
next
feel
few
better
days.
too. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'll see
well,
you tomorrow.
I'll
We're on
get
a group
over it.
tomorrow
I
together.
don't have
All right.
COVID. So, all
No,
right.
but
Thanks. Thanks you all.
we'll see.
Thanks
Yes.
all. Talk to you.
Bye.